All right, friends, I'm going to look at some real world numbers. Right now, the 10-year Treasury has a yield of 1.55%. Look it up. You can go to dailytreasuryyields.gov or treasury.gov for daily Treasury yields, and you'll see it's 1.55%. 2019 inflation was reported at 1.76%. Look it up. So we got a difference between 1.76 and 1.55. That would tell us we have a negative interest rate or negative real rate, right? So that'd be a negative 0.21%, what's called a real interest rate, right? That's what real means, is after inflation. All right, so real is after inflation. Nominal, which is this, nominal before inflation. Now, a lot of people get caught up. We can't use nominal rates, or we should only use real rates. Or I mean, there's a lot of arguments on either side of that. At the end of the day, I'm not all that concerned with it, generally speaking, because inflation it has various goods have different inflationary aspects to them. So if you're going to use just 1.76 as your inflationary target, well, some goods are inflationary higher, some goods are deflationary, frankly. So it's a challenge. Should you use nominal returns or real returns? I kind of go back and forth. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish here. In this video, though, I want to show you why we don't want to use these two numbers together to say you're having a negative real return on your 10-year Treasury bond, all right? Because inflation, my friends, inflation is backward looking, a lagging indicator, or what's called backward. Doesn't mean it's backward like, oh man, you, like what did those guys on CNN were talking about Trumpster voters? You backward hillbillies. And it's racist. I love how a Muslim guy was able to use a Southern draw to criticize essentially white people who vote for Trump. I mean, if that were the other way around, that guy would be banned from polite society. But yeah, if you're Muslim, you can criticize white people and use their Southern drawl like they don't care about geography or spelling. Crazy. All right, so anyway, I just don't care. I just find it funny that some groups can criticize. Some groups can be always criticized. We know who that groups are for sure. It's Christians, white guys for sure. Other groups can't be touched with a 10-foot pole. And you have to, if you switch over those two things, the group who could be criticized can't be criticized. Can't criticize. Who truly has the power? Huh? All right, so if you look at 10-year Treasury, that is a leading indicator. And this is a tough one. You won't say leading, but it is leading. I mean, people aren't going to look at it in economic terms and say it's leading, but it's forward-looking. Right? Now, in terms of true economics, the 10-year Treasury is not really a leading indicator from an economic, for a GDP or something like that. It's not. In your terms, it is, and I'm going to tell you why that is right now. All right, so let's erase this stuff. The reason that you don't want to use this as a negative real return on your Treasury, because that is a leading it's a leading return. This is a lagging return. The two things are completely separate. We do not know what the inflation will be. And so let me show you what I'm talking about here. Oops, just dropped something. All right, so what's going on here? If you say I'm not investing in 10-year Treasury because I'll lose money relative to inflation, that's a wrong statement. All right, and I need a different mark. Ooh, maybe this one. All right, so a 10-year Treasury. So that's better. 10-year Treasury. All right, we start with $100,000. It pays, what I say, 1.55, I think. And after, we should say, hold on a second. We'll say 2020. 2020. And then 2029. We get $100,000 back at maturity, all right? In the interim, we get all these different 1.55% interest rates. So 2020 it's at par value, is issued. 2029 matures, and in the interim, we're getting all those we're getting what, $1,550 a year in interest. All right. So that is forward looking. We know if we buy this 10-year Treasury today, this is what we're getting. We're getting no more, no less. I tell you, I will hammer this concept until everyone in the world, or at least the U.S., understands how bonds work. Because I'm telling you, I was completely wrong about bonds for about the first 10 years of my life as a financial planner. And then I forgot, anyway, at one point I was made right on bonds, and it's my duty to educate you on this. So we know for a fact that this is a forward-looking concept, that we are going to get 1.55%, no more, no less. We buy a bond at par for $100,000. It pays us at maturity $100,000. In the interim, we get 1.55. Inflation, on the other hand, though, let's try this green. I don't think that green works very well. Let's try this one. Inflation, on the other hand, that's not good. Oh, there's a good green. Yeah. All right. Miss Linda has sent these to me from Florida, and I got to open a new pack. Inflation, on the other hand, is 2020. Actually, that's not true. It's 2019, 1.76, but it's looking backwards from 2018. So that inflation number is what's what has happened, I guess, transpired maybe from the 2018 to the 2019 years, all right? So inflation looks behind to see what happened over the course of those last 12 months for the inflation rate. Oh, the last 12 months, the inflation rate was 1.76, all right? But then that has nothing to do with the next 12 months on a 10-year Treasury bond, nothing to do. In fact, with a 10-year Treasury bond so low, there's every reason to believe that this number will drop as well. But we won't know. We won't know until that time comes. So you can't sit here and say, I'm getting 1.55, but after inflation, I'm losing money as a real return. We don't know, because we have no idea what 2020 inflation numbers are going to be. Will they be 1.76? I bet not. I bet they'll be lower unless we have some significant change in the new issues of a 10-year Treasury bond. So we wake up in June or July and we say, okay, the new bonds are paying 2.3%. Well, the reason the new bonds are paying so high, now this is still paying 1.55. A new 10-year bond that's issued has a different interest rate of 2.33. That's how that works. But if that were to happen, then this number is probably up. We'll say to 2.25 or something like that. Does that make sense? I'm telling you, man, do not confuse current Treasury yields with, again, because they're forward-looking. They're projections in the future with past inflationary numbers to say I'm getting a negative yield after inflation. The two should always be parallel. Doing some geometry testing for my son. Parallel means it always goes on into infinity. They're not perpendicular. They're not perpendicular. They're parallel because they never cross. They should never cross. Current inflation numbers are backwards looking. Current yields are forward looking. To compare the two is literally to compare. Not literally. It's hypothetically, whatever that word is, other than literally, rhetorically, I guess, to compare apples to oranges. Don't do that. All right, we'll see you. Oops, keep kicking this thing. Sorry about that. My big feet, my big clumsy feet. We'll see you.